Hi, I'm Yinka, and this is The Hurt Locker, a podcast where we open a door into men's mental health. Come and go.
This is helpful if you're a comedian, but I'm very attuned to the risk of being boring or not talking about something interesting. Is it just small talk,
No, definitely. I hate small talk.
Got diagnosed with autism a couple of years ago.
How was life for you leading up to that?
Yeah, it was frustrating. And also I just remember, even from like 12 onwards, I just remember thinking how weird it was.
You're listening to The Hurt Locker, the podcast that opens a door on men's mental health. And tonight's guest, we've got none other than comedian and writer, Pierre Novellie. Pierre, welcome to The Hurt Locker.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
How are you? How are things?
I'm very warm today. I don't do well in London heat. I like dry heat, but London heat's horrible.
London heat is quite particular, I must say. I'm doing okay, It's been a busy week as such. How's your week been? Weather aside.
Yeah, not bad. I'm a stand-up comedian, so there's no real routine for me. It's a bit random. There's a bunch of admin that I keep meaning to get around to doing, and I just I keep putting it back.
Do you procrastinate?
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah.
Big time. I can identify with that. I can identify definitely with that. So welcome to The Hurt Locker. Do you know much about us and what we do?
I follow you guys on Instagram, as should everyone listening.
Brilliant. Okay.
I've sort of seen clips and so on, and seen what the podcast is about. You've got a wide range of guests.
We have. That's all down to Tim. Tim's being a play the blinder, proper play the blinder there, So yeah, it has been wide and varied, UK and abroad. So yeah, we're just grateful. We're just happy that people want to talk about mental health, etc., particularly men's mental health. So, Pierre, it's not your typical London name. For the benefit of our listeners and our viewers, who is Pierre Novellie?
Well, I was born in South Africa, in Johannesburg. I lived there till I was maybe just about seven. And then we moved to the Isle of Man, so Northwest. And I grew up there. And then I went to uni in England. I started doing comedy as a student, sort of student nights and stuff. And I got very into it and started doing more and more of it, and managed to do some contests and get signed and, turn it into a job.
Okay. I think you're playing down the fact that you're a bit of a brain box, really, aren't you? Let's be honest about it. What did you study at uni?
I have a degree in Anglo-Saxon, Norse, and Celtic studies, which is probably quite relevant if you grew up on the Isle of Man, but it's harder to explain if you didn't.
Didn't you ever think you might become a teacher or a lecturer as a result of that? Because it feels quite specialized.
It's very specialized, yeah. A lot of guys, people in my year who did like really well. I mean, they're real geniuses with languages and stuff. They are like professors in like Norway, if they focused on Viking stuff, and a few of them are sort of professors or academics in Ireland or abroad. There's sort of weird universities abroad that might focus on Irish history. I think University of Florida, for some reason, it's got like a big Celtic history department. Like you never know. They do pop up.
Okay.
Yeah, it is random. But yeah, that is one of the main jobs that you can do with that is teach it to other people and do research and things. Actually, weirdly, as I was graduating, my department was offering an MPhil in Manx studies, and I would have been able to do it sort of on and off the Isle of Man, like with my, I could have just gone back to my parents' house and got another degree and studied the Isle of Man. But I just thought, no, if I do that, I'll never get around to doing this comedy thing. So,
am I correct in saying that you was it vice president of the Footlights?
Yes. So the Footlights, if people don't know, is a kind of long-running student comedy society that It doesn't generally produce stand-ups, actually. It generally produces sort of writers and sketch people and things like Stephen Fry or David Mitchell or Simon Bird, from the In-Betweeners. So it's more of a performance thing. You wouldn't go see him do stand-up necessarily. But it's starting to produce a few more stand-ups here and there. My year was quite a good one for that.
Okay. Was that the first inkling that, this is what I'd like to do full time?
Yeah, well, we had a gig where the headliners it actually paid money for the headliner to be like a real comedian, not some student. We had a gig like that. And so if you did that gig and you met the guy headlining, you could talk to a real comedian, and it made it seem like a job you could do, where you could sort of say to them, so hang on, how does it work? And do you come all over the country doing this? Or it made it seem real. Whereas I think if I'd only ever met other students who were just messing about, it probably wouldn't have seemed conceivable. But if you could meet someone who generally already makes a living.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you think being a stand-up nowadays is much harder?
Yeah, you've got to do everything. I mean, I do stand-up gigs, but I also do corporate hosting and like 3 podcasts, 4 podcasts, and writing, and you name it. You've got to do everything. And I was on the radio before. That's a podcast now, though. And just anything, popping up on radio, anything. It's much harder. There was a gold rush from sort of 1990-ish to sort of 2008-ish. Where it was like jonglers, you're getting like 1,500 quid in cash from a jonglers comedy club chain. There's one in every city. Houses, if you do that for 2 years and maybe commit some light fraud to the tax man, you can buy a house in London, in cash, no mortgage. Yeah. So those were the golden days. There's some very odd people who have houses in London because of that.
No comments. Can I just go back? You grew up South Africa in Joburg, I'm going to leaving a black country, as it were, to move to the Isle of Man. How was that for you?
It was weird, actually. It's funny you say that, because even though I find that when people come visit South Africa and they come back and they say to me, oh, it's still very segregated, they often say that because they've been to Cape Town. And the demographics aren't the same around the country. Johannesburg is...
Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so Cape Town is something like 60% black, and then a very, very big mixed race population, which is a very specific historical mixed race population in Cape Town, and then a lot of Afrikaans, white. And Johannesburg is something like 92% black. It's so much more, and all the sort of new black middle class and like black people who can make money now with the new South Africa and who are profiting and becoming like successful in business and stuff. They tend to be more in Johannesburg and Pretoria. So you'll get a better impression of the equality if you go to Joburg or Pretoria, but you'll get a worse impression of the dangerousness, because they're big dangerous cities, whereas Cape Town is safe because it's full of tourists, But I did find it weird to move to a place that was so. It was really, really, Isle of Man's really, really rural. It's not diverse at all. I grew up in a country where the percentage of the population that has English as their first language, not just that they're fluent, but definitely their first language. South Africa, that percentage is only 5%, something like that.
Okay.
So everyone has like an accent, and they have an accent because they speak a different language that could be one of 15 languages. And, and my cousins speak Afrikaans and I don't understand them. And, it's very diverse and urban. And then, the Isle of Man is not diverse. It's more diverse now, but back then in the late 90s, it was not diverse or urban. It's much safer than Joburg, but I did.
Just a tad, I think.
Yeah.
Just a tad. It's interesting you make the contrast between Cape Town and Joburg, because I've been to Cape Town and I felt the segregation there. I felt the segregation between the historical dual heritage.
Yes.
South Africans and the black Africans.
Yeah,
and the treatment. I felt the treatment.
Yeah, it's much more of a thing in Cape Town. I mean, Cape Town is like LA. It's so expensive and elite, and it's much whiter. And the difference is like if you go to Johannesburg or Pretoria and you go to a really fancy restaurant, Michelin star restaurant, most of the patrons in there will be black. And I've only been to Cape Town once in my life, but I get the impression from what everyone else says that that's not what you're going to see in Cape Town. You'll see room full of white people with the black people working in the staff. And the one thing I will say is also those white people, half of them could be American. I mean, it's like international money loves Cape Town, not so much Joburg. Okay. But yeah, it's very different. Joburg, if you want to see, they call them the Black Diamonds, the new sort of wealthy upper middle class Black South Africans. Yeah, Joburg and Pretoria, you're going to see a lot more. Durban as well, I think, although metropolitan Durban is something crazy like 70% Indian. So
that's true. Yeah. Do you think South Africa is achieving its potential in terms of the African continents?
It's getting there. I mean, they've just managed to fix the electricity problems that started in 2007, rolling blackouts and stuff. They should be. I mean, South Africa has its own uranium. It's one of the few countries in the world with a really decent supply of uranium. There's no reason why the entire country shouldn't be covered in nuclear power plants, and we could be exporting it to the rest of the continent. We could be Africa's battery if we got our shit together. But instead, we often have to import hydroelectricity from Lesotho.
Okay. Wow.
It could be incredible. The thing really that stands in the way is corruption, and often corruption from foreign states like Russia and China.
What is the influence of China in South Africa? Because I've seen what I've noticed in Kenya, what I've noticed in West Africa, their involvement is massive there, and Europe took umbrage with that.
They're not as big in the sort of Belt and Roadway necessarily in South Africa, because South Africa already had quite a lot of first world sort of level infrastructure things. They already had highways or whatever. But initially their influence is political. So the Chinese were the official backers of Robert Mugabe in Zim. The Russians backed a different far left rebel leader. The Chinese backed Mugabe, and the Russians were friendly with the ANC, but the Chinese were also very friendly with the ANC. And over time, you started to see Nelson Mandela's ANC was very friendly with the Dalai Lama. After Nelson Mandela retired, the ANC banned the Dalai Lama from coming to South Africa.
Is that because his visa? Chinese influence?
Yeah, okay. I think they realized that they weren't going to get anywhere letting that guy come and talk about Tibet. They wanted the investment, Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So it's getting there. It's definitely making a lot of progress. It's made a huge amount of progress in 30 years. The problem is just the corruption, like the whole continent. I mean,
the continent, sub-Saharan Africa is rife with that corruption, and I don't understand. Well, I do understand why. I mean, I'm Nigerian, and I still remember 1979, 1 naira was equivalent to £1.25 sterling.
Whoa, you're kidding.
Yeah. Now, for £1 sterling, you probably need about 1,300 naira.
Yeah, I mean, that's, exactly. And there's so much oil and stuff. And
yes,
the resources are there. One of the issues is, I was thinking about this. Something I do is if I don't understand something, I think I sit and obsess about it till I come up with at least a kind of theory I can have. And I was thinking about it because I thought, okay, well, in Europe and Russia and stuff, there were always, corrupt aristocrats for 1,000 years. There were these guys who, would kill peasants and steal their money and, whatever. And the king would just say, well, you own the port of Bristol because you did me a favor. And that's standard. That's been standard the whole time. But the difference is, if you were a corrupt multi-millionaire equivalent back then, you had to spend the money nearby. You had to spend all the money nearby, and you had to say to yourself, okay, I need a nice house to put all of my mistresses in. I'm going to have to build one quite near this house, and I'm going to have to build a nice road between those two houses and the port. And because I want to ride my horse on the road. And so gradually, even though you're spending it in a naughty way, it does improve where you are because you've got no other choice.
Yes.
Whereas if you are like, Grace Mugabe, you can fly to Switzerland on a private jet and enjoy Switzerland when you want to.
Yes.
And the money can live in Switzerland as well. You don't have to spend a penny in Zim on anything. Yeah.
That's spot on. And with that corruption, it's like, well, there's so much money available for projects, etc. And I know people top slice 15%, 20%, but don't take 50% or 75% and you can't deliver a project. You know, you have to show something for the ill-gotten gains.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So you're in the hurt locker. What's in your hurt locker? Take a deep dive.
What's in my hurt locker? I'm very attuned. This is helpful if you're a comedian, but I'm very attuned to the risk of being boring or not talking about something interesting. Because I got diagnosed with autism a couple of years ago, 2022, I think. And so part of that is commonly offloading a load of information about your special interests on someone who, maybe isn't interested in that. And I sort of socially suffered for that a great deal growing up. And so as a result now, I've had to develop a load of tactics to try and figure out if the person asking me a question, do they even really want the answer to the question? Is it just small talk,
No, definitely. I hate small talk. I'm serious. I'm serious. I just want to take a deep dive with you in terms of, you're 34, is that correct?
Yeah.
And it's, 3 years ago you received that diagnosis.
Yes, yeah.
How was life for you leading up to that?
There were always things that I would refer to as my sort of mysteries. There were these things about my life that I didn't really, I could identify them, but I didn't understand them. I didn't understand why they happened or what the point of them was. And things that I now know, for example, like executive dysfunction. Even as a kid, I would be aware that at a certain point, under certain circumstances, I would be completely paralyzed. I would be completely unable to make a decision or do anything. Or even though it wasn't that I was tired, physically, I wasn't worn out like I'd been climbing a mountain all day, but I just couldn't do anything. I would have some important project that I needed to do or homework, and I would just watch the time go away and do nothing. And the whole time I wasn't enjoying that at all. I was panicking, thinking I should really do that, and I just wouldn't do it. And I would sit and I would think, okay, you're not procrastinating because you never actually do it. You're not doing anything else that you enjoy because you're not enjoying it, whatever else you're doing, because you're thinking the whole time about the thing you have to do. You're not putting it off because you don't like it. You do like it. And you're not putting it off because you don't want to do it. You do want to do it. So why aren't you doing it? Every single category or box is ticked for you doing this thing, and you're still just not doing it. It's not like going for a run or something that's a bit tedious. And I just couldn't figure it out. All I knew is that I would have to kind of hack my mind and trick myself into doing it, or just make myself do it at the last minute, or wait for the panic of not doing it to override the paralysis, like sort of deadline panic. Yes. And that would just happen over and over again with things. Oh, not just work. I mean, things like brushing your teeth or washing your hair or choosing something or replying to a text or anything like that. It could be anything.
That must have been exhausting. Literally.
Yeah, it was frustrating. And also I just remember, even from like 12 onwards, I just remember thinking how weird it was. Because I think I was always an obsessive self-analyzer. So there was loads of things I did that weren't good for me, but I knew why I was doing them, really. Okay. Why did you eat the cake instead of the salad? Well, I can explain that. I shouldn't have done it, and I wish I didn't, but it's not a mystery. Whereas this thing, I just thought there's absolutely no good reason for it. it's completely baffling, and it's autistic shutdown and executive dysfunction. It's something at a wiring level. You can't consciously figure it out. You can bring it on through burnout or decision fatigue or stress or all sorts of things, but it's not unpickable until you have the key. Autism is the key to it.
Yeah. Did your parents pick up on that?
I think it's interesting because, autism is paternally inherited. So there's a 60%, well, not paternally inherited all the time. There's a 60% chance if your dad has it that you'll have it. And I mean, me and my dad are extremely similar. So maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. He's not against the idea, but he's in his 70s. So he's got no real interest in finding out. But he was the same growing up. So was his brother. And that's one of the hard things about autism. You explain these things to people and they go, yeah, I have that. And what they mean is they think they have something similar to that. They often don't know what you mean. And a few times in my life, I would say to people, now just let me fully describe this. And I would describe all the points about how I didn't even want it to be happening. And I actually did. It was something I wanted to do. It wasn't even tedious work. It was a fun thing. And I still was paralyzed. And with most people, 99% of people, I would explain it fully. And they'd say, I have no idea what that is. That's weird. If all I said was, sometimes you're a bit paralyzed by a decision, people go, yeah, I get that. Everyone has that. But if I fully took them through the mad criteria of it, they would go, yeah, no, that is strange. That is different. But they'd never have an answer, because why would they?
It's, for me, I'm learning so much. I'm learning so much. Were you critical of yourself?
Yeah. Oh, still am, yeah. Yes, absolutely. I think a lot of people who do comedy have this, or have something similar to it, which is, I was always raised in that way, where maybe it's a bit of a stereotypical immigrant parents thing, but it's also maybe a bit of an African parents thing, which is,
that's something different.
Yeah, you get 90, if you get 80%, why didn't you get 90%?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And my parents, I will say, my parents didn't even say it in an angry or negative way. They would just explain that they were of the opinion that I was able to get these top results if I wanted to, and that if I didn't get them, it wasn't because I couldn't. And so that, even though it's put very nicely like that, it still puts the same pressure on. I mean, they certainly wouldn't have been as this is their reaction to getting a B instead of an A, not as an F or something. They would have definitely been pretty annoyed if there was if I had failed anything. Yeah. So I think that engenders an attitude in your head that is good in some ways, because you think, well, you can always do better. You can always do better. But it's not, there's a limit to its productiveness.
Yes. Definitely.
There's a point where it becomes a self-defeating thing where it's demoralizing.
Okay. I'm just looking, Tim, saying questions for later for listeners, etc.
How do I? Oh, there's the chat. I didn't see it.
Okay. Are you an only child?
No, older sister, younger sister.
Okay. So you're the spongy bit in the middle then. Okay. And what's your relationship like with them?
It's good, yes. Yeah. Actually, weirdly, I did plan to move closer to my older sister in London, but I've ended up, I actually live like one street away. So they're very nearby. And so it's quite easy for me. I can see my nephews now. Yeah. I can see my nephews more. And my younger sister lives in Edinburgh with my niece. And so I see her when I go up to do gigs in Scotland or do the Fringe as well. Yeah, it's good. We were pretty close sort of unit at home, and then we reserved, I think, our social difficulties for school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you like school?
It depends on the era.
Go on.
I would say because I'd never been to school until I moved. Because South Africa, you start school the year you turn 7. So I went from being kind of coloring in to going straight into year 2. So I had a lot of catching up to do. with handwriting and maths and stuff I'd never done before like that.
Okay.
And so I did the catching up. That part I didn't mind so much, but I sort of hated all the obligations and rules. I didn't really understand why I had to do anything that they told me to. I would sort of vaguely do it, but the whole thing just seemed silly to me. I didn't really get it. And then in year 6, I went for 1 year to a selective / private school. If you got a good result, they would let you go for free. If you wanted to pay, you could pay. And the 1 year in that school where it was very like constant work and homework and heavy structure, I loved that. That year 6, I loved that. That was right up my alley. And then high school from 11 to 15, I socially hated it. Academically, I liked it.
Okay.
And then sixth form, I liked it. Socially, I figured out how to talk to people and be funny.
Okay.
Yeah.
This song is going through my head now, you know.
Yeah.
Because there's that I get the social awkwardness as well. How do you talk to girls, for example, if you're into girls, you know, if you fancy somebody, how do you be part of a group and fit in and not stand out? You know, how do you?
Yeah. I wrote a book which is a guide to autism that I tried to make a funny guide to autism because, you know, I wanted people to read it. And as much as you think that something like autism is important, people are busy, you know, they're not going to read a dry medical book. So I thought I would make a funny one. In there, I talk about how many years I spent trying to learn social banter, you know, how to talk to people in a funny, non-serious way. It's like a second language. It took years and years and years, and I got it wrong all the time. Because in my head, you know, very autistically, I was like, well, if someone is polite to you, then that's more like your friend. If someone makes fun of you, then that's not your friend. They're making fun of you. Whereas in reality, especially in the UK, if someone is polite to you, it's because there's this emotional distance between you. You're not close. And if someone is sort of, you know, slightly makes fun of your haircut or whatever, your shoes in like a mild way, that's actually an indicator of closeness. And that took me a long time to figure out.
Wow. Let me read one of the questions. We've got a question from Joseph. He asks if you could turn one of your comedy albums, for example, Why Can't I Just Enjoy Things, into a musical? Who would you have perform it or direct it? What do you think about transposing the individual comedy material into songs?
I have never ever been asked a question like that before. So that's a good one for Joseph. Well done. Who would I have performed it and directed? Directed,
it's got to be yourself, isn't it?
No, I'm not very musical. You know what? My manager, my agent, Julian, he's obsessed with musicals and has read every single book about Sometime There Is, and he can do it. He knows how it's all supposed to work. He can do it.
Okay.
Who would I have perform it? I've got all my friends who are actors, I guess, if I had the budget to hire them, because I'm in the business, like my friend George and Jason, and people I know. That would be good fun. Yeah, I would rather, if I had that money, if in this example I'm putting on a musical and I've got all the money to do that, I'd rather hire people I know. Maybe one celebrity casting just to get the tickets selling. We'll see. Someone from Love Island and then one celebrity.
A bit like what Guy Ritchie does. He gets the same people all the time, doesn't he?
That's it. Yeah, he's got a little cast. Yeah.
Yes. You speak about your friends and that. How was it making friends, developing those friendships and knowing that this person is actually my friend, this person is close to me, this person's got my back?
It was difficult. Something that I've seen a lot of online, which I identify with a lot, is a lot of autistic people have something that you might call best friend syndrome, where they get this idea of a best friend in their head from movies and from cartoons and TV shows, and oh yeah, you have a best friend and they have your back, and you go on adventures together and da da da. And so I always thought, yeah, okay, well that sounds great. You know, someone who sort of has to stick with you because you're best friends, great. And that means that you end up having unrealistic ideas and standards of what most friendships really are. And it means that you are sort of looking for this weird, actually quite unusual thing where someone has a definite best friend one-to-one. I mean, it's actually rare if you think about it, even though it's in media all the time. And I think when you're autistic and you're a kid, you don't realize that they're just putting that in because it's a more interesting story. That's not realistic. It's not how things actually are. It's just better dramatics structure to have a best friend. You want the main character to say, my best friend died in front of me, as opposed to my best friend, a guy I know, one of my 11 friends who I see sometimes died. That's not as dramatically interesting. And so, I had best friend syndrome.
Okay.
And that combined with not understanding banter would mean that I just had no idea of like the social boundaries of like, well, how good a friend is this person? Or that it took a long time to figure that out. And it's still, even as an adult, I will have completely miscalibrated it in some circumstances where I will have thought that they were much closer than they were, or much less close.
Does that sadden you sometimes?
It's definitely, it's definitely something that stresses me out, and it is saddening sometimes when someone. I guess that's not necessarily, it's not just an autistic thing, but I think if you're autistic, it'll just happen more often when you discover that someone else has got such a wildly different perception of the relationship, of the friendship. And you go, oh God, okay.
And the expectations as well. If the expectations in the friendship aren't being met, would you say something about it, or would you just keep quiet?
I guess it depends it depends on why. I've got some friends who are very, very busy. I've got some friends who have their own, difficulties with various mental health conditions, say. And if one of them drops off the radar, then it sort of matters less than if it's someone who normally is on the radar, Okay. So I think you have to take people as they are, really. You just have to shrug and say, well, this is what the person is like. All I can do is react to it. That's it, really.
Okay, thank you. So, question from Samuel. I hate small talk and it's exhausting. How do you navigate this? Does it strain your mental health?
It's definitely very, very tiring. I don't like it at all. I can do it. It's worth having as a skill, because it'll come up in life. You'll have to talk to someone at a event or something. It's good for work, but and for meeting like a friend of a friend or something. But I've gotten quite good, I think, at figuring out if I'm talking to someone where I can sort of skip a few steps.
Yes.
And just see how they react, and just go, what about this? And just try and bypass all that. Not too quickly. You need a bit of it. I'd say, Samuel, a good way to rationalize it that I've done in the past is that this small talk is a way of showing them that you're not, frantic and crazy and whatever. That it's a social test to see, does this person have the ability to be vaguely normal for at least a minute?
But what's normal?
They find that reassuring. I know.
What's normal? Have you had struggles with your mental health?
Oh, sure, of course. Yeah. I mean, the mysteries of why things were the way they were for me before diagnosis were always very, you get quite anxious about them, or they were quite depressing, because you'd think, well, I can't figure this out. I don't know what's wrong with me, in quotes. And definitely small talk is a strain where if I'm very tired, the idea of having to go and do small talk with lots of people it's not so much that I can't do it, or like I don't like those people. The thing I'm worried about is that I'll say or do the wrong thing because I'm tired. I won't get the answers right. I'll say something mad or too detailed or irrelevant to them, and you'll sort of fail the test. I sort of almost see it as like Guitar Hero, like you click the buttons in the right order and you'll be allowed to leave this conversation.
I want to ask you the direct question. Have you ever experienced thoughts of suicide?
there's a great joke by a comedian called Liam Williams. He doesn't do it anymore, stand up, but he wrote a sitcom about growing up working class in Leeds on the BBC, and he's written a book as well. He's very funny, and his joke was, I even considered suicide, but only in the same way I've considered going for a jog every day for the past few weeks. And I think that as a joke, that's such a good way of immediately explaining to someone the difference between being aware of it as something that people can do to themselves and ideation.
Yes.
So I wouldn't say ideation, but you always sort of think in that philosophical way, like, I suppose, if things get really bad in your life, that's what people do, don't they?
100%.
So you're definitely aware of it, but I've never sat and experience the ideation really. I really like. It sounds like a it sounds like a mad thing to say. I really like being alive. I in the sense of like, not in a tedious sense of like happy clappy and dancing around and whatever, but just in the sense of like, even me and my partner and me and my friends discuss like, well, what would you want to be done if you were in a coma, or would you want them to pull the plug, or da. I always say, leave me in there. If I wake up even a bit, that's what I want. I want a crumb, another crumb. That's what I want, a little bit more.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm always very and they go, well, what if you come back and you only half of your mind can function? I go, that's fine. That's my problem. I still no unplugging, even if it's like
you're connected to life then.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. Something.
I think, it's interesting with some of our guests, particularly comedians, and they speak of wearing that mask constantly, and it's like the entire world sees them, Mr. Funny, but inside there's that struggle, whether it be self-esteem, lack of confidence, etc. And I think since doing this podcast, it's given me a real insight, not just to comedians, but human beings more so, of the struggles that we have. That's just my little observation.
No, yeah, I agree. Everyone's got some thing in there going, rolling along that you can't even really guess at sometimes. It's always surprising.
What keeps you motivated?
I'm quite competitive. This is the other side of this. Yeah. The self-criticism is very motivating, because you think, well, I should be able to do that, and often it's unrealistic and you're wrong, and that's quite depressing. But sometimes you find, actually, I can do this thing. For example, like during lockdown, my job is illegal. I've got zero income. I'm hoping that there's some sort of help coming from the government. We'll see, or let's see what happens. I've got nothing to do, and so I wrote a kind of like okay novel, because I just thought, I have to do something. I'm going mad, and this is something I can focus on. And the thing that motivated me and kept me sane was just like the word count going up. Another day, yes, another 500 words. And I'd looked up a technique for doing it, which was you just do 500 words a day and then you stop. It's how Graham Greene used to write. And I can't do nothing. I go crazy. And I think it's the upside of feeling like nothing you do is ever good enough is that you're very motivated. You always have motivation to do something. That does run out eventually. If you keep hitting your head against the brick wall, then eventually you go, all right, I can't do this. And you have to find another angle of attack on it. But it depends what you want out of life. I always wanted to do something that was sort of interesting or unusual, or I was determined to have an interesting life.
Okay.
Whatever form that took, I wanted to do something where people would say, I've always said this, I don't want to do a job where there's not a chance that I could be one of the best at it, or at least I could try.
Good. Okay.
Even if I really wanted to try and play a musical instrument or sing, I'm bad at music, so I can't. That on its own, my lack of skill makes me go, not even consider it. I just go, I'm not interested. I
Okay.
want to be able to get very, very deep. And maybe that links with autistic special interests, like obsession with depth, deep obsession, sets of deep dives into stuff. Yeah.
Your output has been quite prodigious. You've done loads of collaborations. You do a lot of media stuff, radio, etc. And it's like, it lends me a question from Tarek, and I think you did touch on it before. He asked, have you ever suffered from burnout? You do so many things. How do you cope? But you've just answered that in the sense of you
Well,
can't do nothing.
I can't do nothing, but I definitely do get burnout. I mean, I'm a little bit burnt out at the moment. I could tell. I've learned to tell the signals of it. So the other day, I dropped a mug for no reason. I get a bit clumsier with my hands and stuff, dropping things for no reason, forgetful. I left my headphones in a friend's car, and I was on stage last night actually, and I stumbled over my words in a way that you should only really do if it's sort of 3 a.m. You know, the sort of just and like feeling like you're going to pass out. You're so tired, even though you've had a full night's sleep. Yeah, definitely. It's not easy to cope is the answer. The best thing you can do is head it off at the pass and try and delay it. And a tactic that I do that is it's sort of playing with fire, but I find it can feel that, you know, like now I'm sort of burning out and it's on the horizon. But I know I've got too much to do over the next 2 months, so I'll delay it, and then I'll sort of deal with it as best I can in September, because I've got all of August to do the Edinburgh Fringe and stuff. And so
Okay.
what I'm doing now is I'm sort of playing keepy uppy, and then I'll have to just figure out what to do with the ball once it's September. But yeah, I'm fighting a sort of delaying action here. I sort of a few days here and there to try and fight off the burnout. But what you need is, you know, a week of solid, you know, working on it and eating right and sleeping right.
Okay, so is it rest then?
Yeah,
You
you need to remove the stimulation. Another sign of burnout for me is if I'm listening to music on walking around, I won't be able to finish a whole song. I'll just get jumpy and itchy, and I go, I can't. Okay, enough. I get it. And next song. Okay, not this one. Just everything is too much. It feels like your whole body has pins and needles almost. It's too hot. It's too cold. Once you're like that, you've just got to put an eye mask on, or like lie down in a dark room and silence or rain sound or static or something, you know.
Oh, remove stimuli. Okay.
Yeah.
Question from Jules. Have you ever spoken feeling you've overshared about your health, but then being surprised by that person's response?
Oh yeah, that's yes. I got closer to a friend of mine in the last year of uni by doing that, where I just sort of took the risk, I guess, and said about feeling overwhelmed about exams. So we're about to leave university and sort of depressed about this and that, and unsure about this or bad about this. And yeah, it was one of those things where I saw, as I said, the huge relief on his face, and he had all the same problems. He was so relieved. He sort of he he was quite overwhelmed by hearing me say it, and so yeah, it all came out, you know, and we're still very good friends now. Yeah,
It's good.
it does sometimes work like that.
Do you think it's difficult being male?
Yeah, I think it comes with a lot of responsibility, and it comes with a lot of implied responsibility. I think you have, I would imagine and I would say from what my experience is, that especially if you from a more traditional background or like an African background, the idea of a man is much more of a thing, and much more traditional, you know. There's
Scratching my head as you're talking about it. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. Sometimes I'll talk to friends of mine who grew up in very sort of like upper middle class English households, and they won't have that as strongly, I think. They'll have this very refined idea of a man because they're like 7 generations into the middle class. You know, their great grandfather was a doctor, which just blows my mind. Yeah, I think if you're from a background where at some point the men in your family have had to go to war, or they've had to work in a mine or work on a farm or a railroad or do something they didn't want to do to sacrifice for their family and protect their family physically maybe as well, or all this kind of stuff. You feel like you should be like that, and you have a duty to be like that when the time comes, and to be able to be like that, to be ready. There's a kind of, I think, obviously, like, we live in the modern world. You don't need to go around like a caveman fighting other cavemen.
No.
But there's an aspect of being a man that I think is a bit like being a fireman. It's not about all the times where there isn't a fire. It's about the one time where there is a fire. And that's what worries you. You think, well, okay, it's all very well saying there hasn't been a fire so far in the last few weeks, but if there is one today, am I ready for it? Or should I be ready? Am I even right to be thinking about this? Is this even relevant now?
Okay.
How can I voice these thoughts?
Okay, so just something you said then as well. Coming from South Africa, going to the Isle of Man, and then I'm assuming you become, and going to university, I'm assuming you start to see the class system here in Britain. How did you get your head around that?
It didn't make sense to us at all. It's South Africa is like America, and it's race and money's more important than race. It's so different. And here there's all these codes, and there's still racism obviously in the UK, but there's also a weird thing in the UK where you could be from a minority but also be very, very posh and rich and connected, and you could just slide right into the coronation ceremony and no one would mind at all, because you've got that class connection. They don't care. You're the right class. You still sound right and say the right stuff. So who cares where you're from? You're very fancy like me. I love other fancy people. Fine. And on the Isle of Man as well, the Isle of Man is quite useful as a sort of microcosm because it's so small you can't escape it. So you could see there's a couple of bits on the island that are a bit more deprived, and I had a couple of friends growing up who lived on a council estate, and I didn't know what that was, because you don't really get something like that in South Africa especially. And seeing the wide range all in one place, in one little place, of the class and the accent stuff. I mean, that's, the Isle of Man is up in the north. I had a northern accent for a bit, and understanding that some accents people think are clever or not clever. And yeah, it's mad. And it's so deep and so historical.
It is.
It's, I think that it does affect something like how you feel about yourself as a man. I've got, I've got a couple of friends of mine who, they went to an academically selective private primary school. Then they went to an academically selective private high school. And then they went to an elite university. And every now and then they'll be shocked about something that I'm not shocked about at all. And I'll say to them, you have to remember that you've never not been in a curated environment. You've always been surrounded by people who've been filtered by the huge, huge filter of geography and money and history and accent. Like, of course you're surprised, because and it's not like their experience is not valid. It's very valid for what it is. It's the experience that they should have for the lives that they are leading now, which is the lives of being someone in the upper middle class or above. But it does mean that they're going to be surprised by something in the news or some person's behavior or accent or ideas that I'm not going to be as surprised by. And I'm still a very privileged person, but I wasn't it wasn't hidden from me on the island is the difference. I wasn't cloistered away to nearly the same extent. And in South Africa, even less cloistered. You can't be blind to it in Africa. It's right there.
Yes, it's there. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. We've nearly finished on the Hurt Locker. Do you have any questions for me?
Were you born in Nigeria and moved to Liverpool, or did you grow up in Liverpool?
Born in Liverpool, born and raised in Liverpool.
Oh, okay. Whereabouts?
Wavertree. Do you know Liverpool?
Well, just because the Isle of Man, every school trip has to be to Liverpool.
But of course,
yeah.
So it's not far from the city centre.
Yeah, I remember all the Albert Docks and everything. And
yes. When was the last time you were in Liverpool?
2 or 3 years ago for a gig, I think.
Okay.
Maybe 2 years ago. I was there here and there. I'm there here and there. I need to go to the all the galleries and stuff there as well. I mean, the docks are so nice now. It's very different. I mean, that is something that is different. Is up north. I mean, I thought I knew what posh people were like, and then I went to university in Cambridge, and I met posh Southern people.
Yes.
Posh Northern people are completely. No, it's not the same at all.
It's different again.
It's not the same.
You mentioned your sister's up in Edinburgh.
Yes, yeah.
And then you'll see the poshness there as well.
Yes, yeah. The Scottish posh is different as well. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, they've got their own. They've got their own sort of mini version of the class system up there, and it's
they do indeed. Yeah. Have you done the Hot Water Comedy Club in Liverpool?
I haven't. I saw Tim was asking about that. I still haven't done Hot Water. I need to get off my ass and do it, because it is sort of the big comedy club in the country now, in many ways. I've done Have a Word though a while ago now, but I've been on Have a Word, which was good fun. That was when they were still in Runcorn. Now I think their studio's in central Liverpool, somewhere cool.
Okay, cool.
I should. I need to. I should try and get on there again or something, because when I first went on, they didn't realize I'd grown up on the Isle of Man and knew about Liverpool and stuff, and so they were just asking me all these questions about Africa.
Then. Yes, they'll take you to the heart then. For some reason, I've never been to the Isle of Man. I don't
Unless
know
you
why.
like motorbikes, it might not be.
Yeah.
Do I prefer cats without tails, says Tim. Yeah, exactly. Yes, Manx cats, no tails.
Very good.
Who's your favorite comedian? There's a question.
I'm quite cliched, and I'm saying I'm quite cliched, but I love him for his bravery, and it's Dave Chappelle. I love him for the fact that he talks about what's in your face.
Yeah.
What's in your face, and he doesn't. Go on, sorry.
Well, I found Dave Chappelle on satellite TV on the Isle of Man growing up, and I, obviously being from South Africa, I always enjoyed the American comedy approach to anything about race or difference, which is to address it head on, make jokes about it, which is how the rest of the world does it. It's just the UK where it's sort of dinner party rules, no religion, no politics. Don't talk about it. Yeah, absolutely.
Who's yours?
I really like Norm Macdonald. He's passed away now, but I like he's got such a unique joke writing structure and has such a unique delivery. And a big fan of, the classic sort of like UK comedians I watched growing up and at uni, Frank Skinner, who I work with now, and Stuart Lee, and I like Maria Bamford as well. Yes, yeah. Maria Bamford is a great for US comedian that talks about mental health in a really, really funny way, about being sectioned or having to go to a facility for a bit because I think she's bipolar, or she's really, really funny about it, actually. So that could be.
That's interesting. She's quite brave, Dan, isn't it? I think one of our earliest guests, American comedian Jim Mendrinos. We had him on, and he said it would be risque to talk about mental health because there may be a danger of you being cancelled, etc. But then increasingly more and more people are doing the same thing now.
Yeah, I think it's becoming more of a thing.
Okay. And Tim loves Mickey Flanagan, who I do think is quite funny. In fact, he's very funny.
He's very good.
If you've listened to the podcast, you'll know the question. Who's the most important person in your life?
Oof.
And you can only pick one person.
Oh, man. It depends how we define important.
Define it any way you want. Who's the most important person in your life?
It's between either of my parents and my partner, but for different reasons. Yeah, it's like the Holy Trinity. You can't really divide them.
If you had to pick,
I'd have to. You have to pick your partner, don't you?
Okay.
You've got to do it. I should, if I was going to be a really successful comedian, I should say myself.
But it is yourself. The most important
Is it?
person in you is you.
Yeah, that's true. Without me, I wouldn't exist, I guess.
Yeah, you're the expert of you.
Yeah.
You know what makes yourself
that's true.
happy. You know what makes yourself sad. And only by attending to your needs, first and foremost, can you be fully there for the people who you love and care for. And imagine if you took care of business for you. Imagine how much more richer and textured and layered that love and care would be for those people who mean so much to you in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. You'd have the resources.
Yeah. You went there, you went somewhere, Dan.
I was thinking about how right you were. I was thinking about it. You're right. Yeah. You've got to sort out your own garden.
Did that feel difficult sometimes?
Oh yeah, yeah. You always think it's I think if you're a certain type of person, I think most people would feel that it's indulgent, but I think if you're worried about being indulgent, you're probably already safe.
Okay. Final question. Dinner party. There's 8 people at the dinner party. Who would you invite?
Oh, of anyone ever, or people
Ever? Yes. Anyone ever?
Okay. Okay. Mandela, Harold Hardrada, because
okay, because of your studies, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mandela, Harold Hardrada, Svein Forkbeard. That's a good name, isn't it? It's a good Viking.
That's a great name.
Yeah. Kim Philby, the spy, the traitor.
Yeah.
Talk to him. It's very interesting.
Yeah. That's 4.
Mary, Queen of Scots.
Okay.
I have people who I can interrogate. I have a lot of questions.
Yeah, I'm getting that sense straight away then. 3 more.
Norm MacDonald. Bring him back,
yes.
the good comedian. 2 more. Because I was been listening to the rest of this history. I'd also say Malinche. Malinche was the sort of interpreter for Cortez when they conquered Mexico. She was a native woman who learned how to speak Spanish and it was the interpreter. And it's a whole long story, but it's really, really fascinating. I have a lot of questions. If we assume we can all understand each other.
Yes. Yes. And what would the main meal? What would the main meal be?
Oh yeah. South African barbecue. A South African barbecue, big braai.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
Pierre Novellie, thank you for being a guest on The Hurt Locker.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure. The Hurt Locker is a safe space for our guests to openly share their mental health experiences. If you have been affected by any of the content in this recording, then please reach out for support. If it is an emergency, dial 999. If you would like to talk to somebody today, then please call the Samaritans on 116 123. Stay safe. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Hurt Locker. Please give us a rating or share with another listener. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Hurt Locker Pod.